Friends, I have a very special guest today, a person who's been in education for over 25 years. His name is Philip Knafla, and he is a principal in Country Central High School in the Palliser School Division. Now, in his work over those years, he has worked from larger public schools to smaller alternative programs and has had the opportunity to work with students from K to 12. Currently, he's the principal at Country Central High School in Vulcan, Alberta. He's a student-oriented leader who is passionate about taking care of people in the building, creating unique opportunities for students, and striving for fun, collaborative, and hard-working days. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you, Dr. Al. It's great to be a guest on your show.
So tell me a little bit about your experience. You've worked across different education settings. How has it shaped to where you are now?
Well, now that I'm, been in education for a long time, having the experience of teaching all the way from kindergarten to grade 12, I've done grade 1 health all the way to math 30-1 in grade 12, the academic diploma course. And so you really see the entire journey that students go through. And for me, it reminds me that it's about the journey as a whole. It's not about any one day, any one week, or even any one year, that if we keep kids excited and engaged in learning, they'll get there eventually.
Well, I think the biggest things with students is they need a good teacher. I know with my kids and my grandkids, they'd always go to always come home and say, well, my teacher said, like teacher is God.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, parents do give you a lot of trust. They send you your kids for 8 hours a day. I have 2 children of my own who just graduated high school last year. And so you realize how important teachers are to the shaping of individuals because they see them for the best part of the day, 5 days a week. So that relationship is really important, and especially making sure that every student has an adult that they can connect with in the building. That's important.
Well, it's important, but I think what's more important than just connecting, it's the supporting environment that the teacher gives. It's the loving. Even though students might mess up, they look beyond the behavior to the real student that's there. That is what truly is what sets a great relationship.
Yeah, one of my mentors when I was first starting out teaching gave me this awesome set of advice that I remember to this day. So this is my first full year teaching. And he said, you got to keep your memory as short as the students. So he's like, if you have an interaction that is negative, goes badly, the kid swears at you, whatever happens, wait to make a judgment until the next day. If they walk in, if they apologize, or if they even apologize by saying, hey, and they treat you normally, then what happened on that other day, you weren't even a part of the story. You just happen to get the brunt of the outflow. But if a student carries that interaction over weeks, then you need to remember that it's somebody who that interaction had a long-lasting impact on. So he said, always keep your memory as short as the students.
Yeah, I remember once Roger Staubach was being asked a question by an interviewer, and he asked him, why are you the greatest quarterback of all time? And he was silent. And he said, is it because you can throw the ball farther? He was silent. Then they said, is it because you can read the defensive better than anybody else? He was silent. Finally, the reporter said, why are you the greatest quarterback of all time? And he said, a very short memory. And isn't it true that when everything's coming at you all the time, you have to develop a short memory? Because if you're not, something's going to get in the way of what you're supposed to be doing, which is teaching.
And we're all teaching in different aspects. Like anybody who's a part of the school is involved in kids' education, from your custodians to your EAs to your admin assistants to the teachers. Everybody's shaping the lives of the kids and the colleagues in the building.
Well, and I think that's important to realize, because when you miss this, when you miss the fact that everybody is important, everybody in your system is important, because if you do not have that importance going on, you miss something pivotal in the school. You miss something there. If you have a grumpy janitor that's yelling at the kids all the time to clean up their messes, I don't think that speaks well for any school.
Yeah, and a lot of the research has shown that if we can build that relationship first, and then work collaboratively when we need do things together, and explain the reason for why we're doing them. So, I'm in a 7 to 12 context right now. So if kids leave a mess, okay, can you clean it up, because otherwise you're asking somebody else to do it for you. And what is that taking them away from doing? Who are they not able to help now because they're taking care of something that you could have just done when you had the mess? And so really trying to work with the kids and explaining the why, and still holding firm to that level as well, because you don't want to be wishy-washy.
So is that the pivotal strategy you use to foster a strong, positive culture between students and staff?
Yeah, I believe it's really important to be transparent and clear in your communication. If people understand the lens that you're using, and then if you're consistent, you're following your values, and you're stating things within the context of the school and why it matters, I think that really helps with people understanding why you're doing what you're doing and what they need to do to be a part of that journey.
Okay. I think it's important. The journey is what it's all about. Whether that student is going to go on into a trade, whether they're going to go on into something else, whether they're going on to university. So it's important to give them the importance of knowing that they can do it, that whatever they choose, it's right for them.
And sometimes the choices we make don't happen right away. There's often the perception that by the end of grade 12, you need to know what you're doing heading out of grade 12. Well, I'm the poster child of no, you don't, because I didn't become a teacher till 10 years after I graduated high school. I told my parents that I refused to be in education when I was graduating high school, because my mom was humanities junior high teacher. My dad was university professor at the USC, and I didn't want a part of their life. I wanted to forge my own path. And I was in advertising at the Calgary Herald. And after about 9 years, I realized I wanted to do something different. So then I asked all my friends, how did you figure out what you wanted to do in life? And all of them talked about a teacher in junior high that helped them realize what they wanted to do in life. And so then I moved back into my mom's basement, went back to school to become a teacher.
Isn't that a great story? Almost every great teacher and principals that I've talked to have had a similar story, that they've had to carve their own way, that they didn't think they were going to go along that path.
Yeah, and one of the things that has guided me throughout my career is the attitude of why not. So leaving yourself open to possibilities. When somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, would you mind doing this? Sure, why not? Hey, would you mind trying this? Sure, why not? Hey, there's an opportunity at another school that we think you'd be a great fit for. Sure, why not? And because sometimes people see in you where they can see you being successful and how you can have a greater impact on kids, and trusting the people around you to recommend and suggest things of where you can be of use is a good thing.
So can you share an example of a unique opportunity you've created for students at County Central High School?
Yeah, and so this is my first year at the building, and so you're always about building relationships, learning about the history, finding out about the community, the families, the relationships, and then finding out what are things that kids want to do that would make them excited to come to school every day. And so a couple of things that we've launched this year is we had a new shop teacher who had experience in automotives. So he's starting up a brand new automotives program at the high school. And we have a lot of kids who are from rural, and so the ability to work on cars is a fantastic thing, and a lot of them already play around with vehicles on their own home lots as well. And then we had another teacher who wanted to bring in rock band, because band isn't as exciting as something like rock band is. And so we've gone out and we have some great community partners to help purchase equipment. So those are a couple of new options at the junior high and high school level that make kids excited to come to school, because we know they behave better, they work better in their academic courses if there's something in their day that gives them joy.
That's great. So how do you balance the administrative demands of your role with your passion for staying connected to the students?
So I'm in a smaller school right now. There's about 220 students. And so because of that, I still get to teach. And so right now I'm teaching Math 10, which is great because math science is my happy place aside from drama. And so being involved with the students in their learning journey is great. Also intentionally choosing to be on outside supervision as much as possible to see the kids when they come in Monday morning. I also take Friday afternoon to be the last person to wish them a great weekend heading out and to continue to build those relationships. And then just as part of instructional supervision, being in the hallways a bunch, wandering around, talking to kids, popping into classrooms, seeing what they're doing, what interests them. You've got to be visible and not just sit in your office all day.
Oh, that's great. So what role does collaboration play in your leadership philosophy, and how do you encourage it amongst your staff?
You know, everyone talks about an open door policy as the first step to do that, and I believe that. And my door is open. Like today is probably the only time my door is going to be closed, is so that I can be a part of this podcast. Otherwise, my door is always open. And anytime somebody comes in and asks the question, do you have a minute? My answer is typically absolutely no problem. It does then create a challenge for when do I do the deep thinking tasks and when do I do the tasks that take more time that you don't want to be interrupted for. And sometimes that's then what I choose to do in my evenings and weekends, is the times when I can put a bit more time and effort in without worried about being interrupted. My family has been outstanding because you can't do this job without a supportive family. It just doesn't happen, at least if you're hoping to be good at work and good at home. And so I find that by making my time intentional, that, you know, from the hours of like 8 to 3, I'm open and interruptible at any time. And then I do the harder tasks or the deeper thinking tasks outside of that.
Perfect. So how do you incorporate fun into the school day while maintaining high standards for learning and behavior?
Well, as I shared, I've done both drama and math. Those are my two happy places, which is a bit of an unusual mix. As a teacher, I wrote about 18 different math songs that incorporate the concepts of math into the unit that we're studying, and I've used them all the way up to grade 12. So it's not just something I've used with the younger kids as well. And so then you're talking about integrating important elements of the curriculum into a fun way. And for kids who are musical, it's a great way to learn. And so when I look at, from an administrative standpoint, what are the unique talents and gifts of your staff and your students that if you encourage them to try to find ways to use them, it's amazing what they'll produce. The best advice I always received was always hire people smarter than yourself. I think that's a great strategy.
That is important. But here's something. You now work in a smaller rural school, and that differs from the larger public settings. Tell us a little bit about the differences and how you've coped with them.
Yeah, so some of the challenges is over half of our students get bused in, and depending on where they live, they're on the bus for 90 minutes each way. So you have a student who might be on the bus for 3 hours and then coming to school for 7.5 hours. That makes for a very long day. And so we've been fortunate to get some nutrition grants so that we can provide them breakfast when they come in off the bus. So they start their day with something to eat and a nice way to welcome them into the building. And there's even things such as trying to schedule breaks as best you can. We have a slightly longer lunch to let the kids go off campus and come back so they get a break from the school setting as well. And then just recognizing that there's certain seasons that are important when you're part of a farming community. So for example, if it's seeding season or calving season, or these different things where the kids are in high demand at home, finding ways to be flexible about the expectations of your coursework. Can I lighten something here? Can I move something here to be able to balance the demands of home as well as what's happening within the school? We have quite a few students who are heavily into athletics, from hockey to volleyball to basketball to rugby. We're actually just the home of Kiara Wardley, a silver medalist from the Olympics for women's sevens rugby. So we're happy to have that connection as well. But when you have that athletics, making sure that you're communicating with the teachers as a whole team about kids who are missing classes to attend different athletic events.
Oh, that's great. So, what advice would you give to new principals about building strong relationships with their school communities?
It's all about time and interest. You know, the advice is there: listen first, ask open-ended questions, trying to find a way to track your thoughts. So when I started this year here at the school, you're meeting so many people and your brain just cannot retain all the names and all the information. It's just not possible. So I had two strategies. One is I had a Google Doc where I would type in, after conversations, things I learned about people, just as an informal way to remind myself things about people that I wanted to remember but didn't have the capacity to retain. And the other was being very open and transparent with kids and with parents, saying, I'm going to ask for your name possibly 5, 6, 7 times until I don't have to ask anymore, because it is important for me to know your name. And I want to keep asking until it is embedded in my memory, but I only have so much brain power to retain all the new that's coming in. So those are a couple of strategies that I used to try to help make sure that I was prioritizing relationships and having conversations, and then how do I retain that knowledge over time?
Okay, that is important. Now, looking ahead, what is one innovation or change you hope to bring to County Central High School in the next few years?
Well, there's one that's sort of more of a 3 to 5 year hope, and that's more about education in general. I love technology, but I also understand that technology has its place and its point. You know, we're in the realm of AI right now, and there's questions about, will AI replace teachers? Will it replace jobs? What are the benefits? What are the harms for things like AI? And teaching kids how to use it effectively while not being plagiaristic about their use, because it's only going to increase in the workplace once they leave school. And so we have a bit of a responsibility to make sure that kids know how to use it powerfully, how to use it well, and how to use it ethically. So trying to figure out how to incorporate that within the school structure.
Yeah, I find, we are on a trajectory right now where all these things like Chat GPT has a huge role to play in helping us. People say, well, isn't this going to make it too easy for students to write for their English classes and their literature classes? When I was going through that, I had Cole's notes. I couldn't do it without Cole's notes. So isn't this just a greater variety of Cole's notes for that thing? Isn't this really what's going on there? This is helping us to understand things at a better level than what we could do personally ourselves because of our limitations?
And the way that I try to explain it when I'm asked about that is, let's take an essay as something simple, and that's frequently AI is misused for. Is it okay for your parent to edit your essay? Most would probably say yes. So therefore, it should be okay for AI to edit your essay, because your parents may not be around, they may or may not love working with essays, so that gives you a professional at your disposal. Is it okay for your parent to write your essay? Most people say no, it's not okay for your parent to write essay. So that then also links to AI. You shouldn't be using AI to write your essay for you. Idea generation, editing, formatting, error correction, those are all things that a human specialist could do. So AI gives us an increased ability to use those.
Yeah, I find when I'm writing a book, for example, I find AI is the greatest tool to give me an outline for that book
Mhm.
and then help me to fill in some talking points for the chapters, which then I fill in myself. In other words, it shortcuts the gap to getting all the heavy lifting done. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and saves the human creative, connective ability to web used for what its greatest use is for, which is the creative aspect of writing. And that doesn't remove the ability to need to know how to write, how to create sentences, how to use punctuation, because the deeper you know that, the more powerfully you can use AI as well. And so that's part of it, is finding the joy in the creation of the task itself and using AI as a supportive tool. And all of this has to happen within the context of a relationship with the people in the building.
Yeah, if you don't have that relationship, you know, I always say AI is not going to replace people. But what's going to replace people is those who know how to use AI.
Agreed. And, when I grew up, I, was born in the 70s. And so I was right on the edge of when computers were coming out. And I remember, when computers were first coming out, home PCs, there was a talk about how this is going to change everything. You have the movies like War Games and all these old ones or the Terminator, and, where computers are going to take over the world. But I learned how to rip apart a computer and reassemble a computer by hand. And I realized that it's just another tool.
Exactly. And this is what we have to look at all these things. Even the classroom is a tool. It is not anything but that to get a student educated. It's not about reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is much more than that.
Absolutely. And, finding a way to help people determine what they're passionate about. And do I want to incorporate that as part of a career? Do I want to just keep that as something I love to do in my personal time? When I went into teaching, part of why my friend suggested is like, well, you're always helping. You're always teaching us. Like, that makes sense that you would then move into teaching. I loved computers and technology, and I didn't want my career to be focused around that. But yet I use them on a daily basis, and they help me be good at my job.
Yeah, I find I'm a computer user. I'm not a computer lover. There's a huge difference between the two. One facilitates what you want it to. The other one, it becomes something where it takes over your whole life.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concerns in society about phones and computers and gaming, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years. But to me, the most important thing we got to keep central from within a school perspective is got to build solid relationships, got to build great learning experiences, and we got to do it all together and be collaborative.
How have you learned to live a fantastic life, balancing all those elements that you do?
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
And that's what I love. You know it's an evolution. You know it's a process. You know it's not an end point. It is something that you do every day. It's the Monday that you come in all full of energy and bring that into your students. It's all about that, because really it's not a one thing, it's an all-time thing.
Mm-hmm. And depending on where you are in your cycle of life as well, your kids, your marriage, all that sort of stuff, your parents, when you move into that phase as well, just constantly trying to rebalance your priorities. And, there's a couple of things I always remember is one of the studies that I did was an idea of you have to die to live. And the concept was, what do you have to give up to yourself so that you can live an amazing life? And sometimes where we put our time is preventing us from putting time into things that are much more important to us or to others. And work could be all consuming. I'm sure I could sit in this office and in this building and never go home and never sleep. And I would still find things to do. Like, our lives are very busy, but also understanding that while each person who fills a role cannot be replaced, somebody else can also sit in the chair and do the work. And so finding ways to balance that, our family and our relationships with the people both at work and at home are really important. And also doing the best we can at work and trying to balance that out. There are days when I feel like, okay, I've got too much on my plate. Who am I going to fail today? And that can be a hard mental path to be in. But sometimes we have to realize that somebody's not going to get our best effort. So who are we going to choose for that to be? And that's probably the hardest thing in leadership that I've found to deal with, is understanding that you can't do everything you want to do always. So where are you going to make your choices?
Yeah, we're always doing a balancing act. We're always doing a juggling act. It's always something we do each and every days of our lives. But with that, we move forward. We should always do it at the end of our comfort zone, because that is where you truly make your most progress.
And it helps to also love what you do and to gain energy and satisfaction from what you do. I love my job. I love the school I'm at. I love my family and my kids. And all these things give me joy and energy. And that also helps maintain how you approach each day, walking Monday morning in, as you said, with a smile on your face. Finding the joy in life really, for me, helps me stay motivated, stay connected, and enjoying what I'm doing.
Exactly. This has been indeed a privilege to have you on my show. Is there a contact means in case somebody wants to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, and also my work email address at philip.knafla@pallisersd.ab.ca.
Thank you again, Philip. It has indeed been a
Thanks.
pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Dr. I really enjoyed this experience, and another of a why not moment.
Exactly. And friends, if you would like to know more about becoming an elite educator, check out every one of my shows, because each one of these give golden pearls of knowledge for you to find out how to enhance your programs and enhance your teaching. Thank you, and I hope to talk to you again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.